Hey guys, and welcome into KC Sports Tonight. I am Mark Poulose, joined by Katie Maher up here at Missouri Western. And Katie, it's hard to believe we're already in our last week of training camp up here in St. Joe. You've probably been here more than anyone on our team. Has the time flown by, or what's it been like?
It feels weird now that we're in the final week. There was maybe a solid week in there where it was like, oh my gosh, it's still hot outside. Yeah. But the weather was, it was bad today in terms of rain, but it wasn't as hot, so that was cool. I don't know how I'm going to function without my daily trips up and down I-29. Truly, St. Joe will be missed.
She's the queen of I-29. That road is hers. She's been on it almost every single day. Certainly was an exciting day for us out here at training camp. We didn't get to shoot much of it. The Chiefs really didn't want us to see much of what was going on at practice, but we did get to watch. It was exciting to talk to Andy Reid back here in kind of in the metro area after they were down in Arizona. Remarkable to me to hear the first thing out of his mouth when assessing the preseason game was the amount of penalties, because so often we see Kansas City Chiefs teams, and specifically under Andy Reid, so disciplined. They never beat themselves. That you never see them take like just mindless penalties. And Coach Reid, he was pretty upset about that.
Yeah, you and I were watching the game at work on Saturday night, and I think it was towards the end of the third quarter. They flashed a bug on the bottom of the screen, and it said like 9 penalties, about 100 yards at that point, whereas the Cardinals only had 5 for about 40 or so yards. And we both kind of said something about that. So that definitely took us by a shock. It definitely took Andy Reid by a shock, because he was like, it was one of the first things he talked about. But he also added that, it was a really great game for their running backs, and that can't happen. So it's definitely some things Big Red did not like from Saturday night, but he also said there were a lot of things that he did like Saturday night.
Yeah, there certainly were. It was funny to hear him say, actually, because I think it was 105 yards of total penalties. He's like, for a running back, that's a good day. And we gave that up in penalties. So, Big Red, we always see him during the regular season, hardly gives you anything. But honestly, when he gives you just those little peaks, he is actually really, really funny. So it's cool to see that. But talking about some of the positives out of the Chiefs' first preseason game, certainly was some things to like. And I think we talked about this on the air on Saturday, but the starters, specifically Patrick Mahomes and really a lot of the key guys, some of the key guys like Travis only played those 3 snaps. Patrick, today Gardner Minshew said Patrick had the perfect game, 1 for 1, 1 yard, 1 touchdown. I know we talked about this earlier on the show, but I was actually very happy to see Mahomes only play 3 plays, because I don't want to see any of these starters injured.
Yeah, it's not a case like on other NFL teams, like the Giants right now or the Browns, where there is a QB controversy and you have to see every quarterback play a certain amount of time. Patrick Mahomes is the starter of this football team. Like, you don't need him to play. He's entering his 9th year in the NFL. Honestly, I was fine with just 1 drive. I'm like, I think it's good for him to get 1 drive and the other, first-team starters, because they got to kind of get back into it. That's the point of the preseason. But the bigger point of the preseason is to see the guys that they're less sure about, the rookies, get them that playing experience. They have roster cuts to make. There's 91 guys on the roster before that game. There has to be 53 in a very short amount of time. So preseason is not about Patrick Mahomes. It's not about Travis Kelce or Isaiah Pacheco or any of those guys. It's about the other ones. But I really liked what I saw from Josh Simmons. A lot of people obviously have been talking about him ever since he got drafted, and all throughout training camp so far, he's been undoubtedly the starter at left tackle. But we saw him play 11 snaps, 3 with Patrick Mahomes, and then the rest with Gardner Minshew. And I thought his protection looked really great. I liked what I saw.
Yeah, today we did get to hear a little bit from Andy Reid about what he thought about the left side of the offensive line. He was asked about Kingsley Suamataia there at left guard. I know if you go online, you'll see Chiefs fans, some saying he did terrible. You'll see some other people saying he did great. I think the reality of the matter is a lot of these people making these evaluations online don't know what the Chiefs asked Kingsley to do, and they're not football people, so I don't know if we can really trust their evaluations. But Andy Reid today, he said he liked what he saw, and he also said he liked what he saw out of Josh Simmons. He said those two are really kind of working on their chemistry there on the left side of the line, and I think that's a big clue for Chiefs fans, because we're trying to figure out how that left side of the line is going to shake out. We know Jalen Moore's kind of worked in there at left guard, but when Andy was talking about how, our Coach Reid, I really should say, when Coach Reid was talking about those two building some chemistry, first name basis with my good pal, my close personal friend, Andy Reid. But it was cool to see him talk about how those two are developing. But one thing I also want to talk about is the reason we only saw Patrick for those 3 plays, and it's the new kickoff rules. We saw kind of that ball, that opening kickoff landed in an awkward spot. The guy he just got it in a weird spot, and then this is what the NFL wants. They want more excitement on those kickoffs. Today, we saw the Chiefs continuing to work on that. What do you kind of make of the whole kickoff situation?
Yeah, I'm always for play more football, and I think that with the way that kickoffs were going before these changes were implemented, not as much football was being played. You know, it was just touchback all the time. But we kind of got to see at the end of the second quarter, when there were 4 seconds left in the game, Chad Ryland, the kicker for the Cardinals, probably just shanked us anyways. But he, sent it all the way back past the end zone because there were 4 seconds left, and we saw the Chiefs take over at the 35-yard line. And for me, kind of seeing that get put into perspective what it actually looks like, I was like, if I'm an opposing defense, I don't want to see that. It's kind of scary to see that.
Yeah.
That's a little too close to midfield for my comfort. So we got to see, Butker, a lot of good placement today, kind of right before the end zone. So something that they've really practiced, the special teams have really practiced a lot in camp so far, and clearly it's been paying off because all of his kicks Saturday night looked great.
No, they really did, and I'm glad that you brought that up specifically, what happened today at practice, because we always know, every NFL team is trying to find an edge in so many different ways. We always hear about this as a league of parity. Like, a lot of the teams, like the talent level really isn't all that different, so you got to find these minuscule edges where you can truly separate. And today, at the end of practice, the Chiefs were spending a lot of time on kickoffs. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's the kickoff, it doesn't really matter. They don't think it's going to be a big change in the game. I got to tell you, out here at camp, the way that the Chiefs are emphasizing this and the way that they are practicing this, the kickoffs are going to have a huge impact on the game this year, I truly think, and that's why we're seeing them work out so hard at this. And then one name that I'm bringing him up here because we saw him return a kick, but in the passing portion of practice when they're working on maybe some 7-on and some passing drills, Jalen Royals was getting the ball a lot, and it just looks like when he runs, he's really low to the ground. He looks like he's really making some noise.
I just think that after a few years of the receiving situation being what it has been in Kansas City, when you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes and you've seen what it's like for him to have a really talented receiving core like he's had in, some of his first few years in Kansas City, I think the Chiefs just really do not want to go back to where they've been in terms of that room for the last few years. And that starts with, getting your rookies on the right foot right away. And Jalen Royals, clearly they think he can be one of those guys that one day becomes one of those top receivers, and that's what they want for a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, who is so pass heavy. They've talked a lot about how Jalen Royals is forming really good connections with the quarterback, specifically Patrick Mahomes. That's very good. That's going to put him, if you have 7 receivers on this roster by the time it's 53, I don't see how Jalen Royals gets left out of that. He's just made a really big impact so far. No,
he really does look like a really solid player, and we've been seeing it all of camp. Today we saw him working more with the ones maybe than we had in weeks past, which is a good news if you're a big Jalen Royals fans, because it looks like he's going to be a contributor. But early on in camp, a guy that we saw him throwing the football to him quite often was the new backup quarterback, Gardner Minshew. Another year, another new backup here for the Chiefs. This one, Minshew, obviously been a starter here in this league. Today we got to talk to him at the podium here at training camp, and it was kind of cool to hear him talk. Like, he seems like a little bit of a funny guy, like a loose personality. Like, it doesn't sound like it doesn't look. He has long hair and a mustache. I don't think he takes himself too seriously. But when he's out there, he's a gunslinger. Like, he really plays. It was exciting to me to hear how excited he is to be in this offense and the way that he likes the way that Andy Reid coaches it, and hearing how it's very quarterback friendly. We know he's been a starter in this league, and obviously, God forbid, no one wants to see Patrick Mahomes get injured. But what's your confidence level in Gardner Minshew, seeing him out here at camp, and then obviously 2 touchdowns, 1 run, 1 through the air on the preseason game?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, what's your take on his mustache? He's got pretty.
It's a good mustache, but I think Big Red Andy Reid has the best mustache. Actually, we were talking about this the other day in the sports office. Andy Reid, all right, we're getting takes out here. I think he has the closest mustache to Teddy Roosevelt in the history of America. So Coach Reid, he has the #1 mustache, but number 2, is it Travis or Gardner? I'll ask you the question.
Wait, has Travis shaved it recently?
He might have, but we know he's had one in the past.
We keep very in track of his haircuts, but
if he shaved it, I guess Gardner has the leading mustache.
Yeah, I haven't seen anyone else on the team that has something so unique. But back to football, because that's what we're here for. We like to have fun on this show. But I personally think there's no better job in the NFL than a backup quarterback to Patrick Mahomes with an Andy Reid-led team. And that's what kind of the echoing statement from every backup quarterback I feel like that's come here throughout the years. Carson Wentz had the same thing last year. They love the way this offense is ran. And, if you're a guy like Gardner Minshew and you come to terms with the fact that you're not going to be a starter in the NFL, you're not going to be a franchise quarterback, where better to go than with the Kansas City Chiefs? And you get a free trip to the Super Bowl almost every year, at least the AFC Championship. But we saw really, I like the flashes that we saw from him. We didn't get to see as much because he really only played for about a quarter, with just the way that the game turned out. And we saw a lot more Bailey Zappi than we did Gardner Minshew. But I mean, he went 6 for 9, 54 yards and a rushing touchdown. Someone asked him today how tempted were you to throw the ball into the stands after, and he kind of just was like, no, that's a penalty. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So that's where we kind of think he's a little bit of a funny guy. But yeah, I mean, there's no better job than a backup quarterback to Patrick Mahomes in the NFL, and I think he realizes that, and he said he's here to keep learning and keep getting better every day, and we're better to do that than under Andy Reid.
Yeah, it was actually I love when you hear, like, you get a little bit insight into an athlete's mind, like, especially a guy that maybe knows that he backs up Patrick Mahomes. He's probably not going to play a lot of football, but how he tries to mentally attack every day of practice, because he goes, yeah, the situation is what it is, but like it's on me to get better every single day. And he talked about how the coaching staff here really is pushing him to try to add to his game. He talked about how, like, we already know that Gardner is a gunslinging quarterback, likes to extend the plays, and I mean, he puts the ball up there. And he talked about how Andy Reid wants him to still be aggressive and keep that aggressive mindset. We've definitely seen that out here at I was about to say spring training, out here at training camp. We have seen him throw some interceptions. Yes, we have seen him throw some long completions also, but it's good to hear maybe some of these interceptions that we're seeing at practice. He's being coached to be aggressive, and that might be a cause of some of that. So it's cool to see him. And then, Katie, we also caught up with tight end Jared Wiley, and I think he actually had some very interesting comments. What did you think about that?
Yeah, so, I mean, for those who don't remember, he tore his ACL back in November 1st, I believe it was. It was a non-contact in-practice injury. He was the 4th-round pick in 2024 for the Chiefs, and at the time, he drew a lot of comparisons to Travis Kelce. Travis was entering the final 2 year of his contract, and that's when the Chiefs kind of were like, okay, we got to find, Noah Gray obviously is super talented, but they got to keep thinking, he was a 2021 pick, so they got to keep restocking every few years, and Jared Wiley seemed to be a guy that the Chiefs really had a lot of interest in, and clearly they picked him 4th round, so there was a reason for it. His rookie season was cut shorter than he would have liked. Now he's kind of in the weird spot where he kind of is fighting for a spot on this 53-man roster because of bringing in Robert Tonyan, and he was a leading receiver on Saturday night in that preseason game, so the Chiefs are liking what they're seeing from him, but he is a vet. He is older, so Jared Wiley still does have the young positive attributes to him. He's younger than all these guys, but usually an ACL tear is about a year worth of rehab, and he and his trainers said that they set a goal, and that was to get him playing by training camp, and he's been playing. He's got the compression sleeve on his leg that we saw today, but he played Saturday night. He had a reception for 2 yards. It's something, but that's why we say he seems like he might be fighting for a spot on this roster at this point. Also due to his injury, who knows? He talked a lot about the rehab process, and he also talked a lot about what it was like sitting on the sidelines at the Super Bowl. He was like, it was awful. Like, I wanted to be out there. So I appreciated hearing that raw realness from him.
Yeah, no, he was definitely very open at the podium, and it was just as you said when he was talking about how hard it was for him to watch the Super Bowl. You got just a glimpse of the human emotion of these guys. Like, he wanted to be out there, he wanted to be with his teammates, and he just had to stand there on the sidelines, like he was Neil Jones out there. But a couple fun notes out here at training camp today. There was a Chiefs legend, Tom Bahali, handing out Snickers ice cream to kids. Katie, we had a chance to catch up with him. It was kind of cool. It seemed like he was having some fun.
Yeah, he said, he was happy to be out here partnering with Snickers. He's obviously Ring of Honor member for the Chiefs, ambassador for the Chiefs, but he said he loves to come to training camp and just be around the fans. And I asked him, what's it like? Obviously, you're not playing anymore, but you're still in Chiefs Kingdom. What's it like being a part of the dynasty and all that's happening right now, success-wise for the team? And he said, it's kind of nice to just sit back and enjoy it.
Yeah.
So you'll hear that story. We'll have that live at 5 today. So that was cool to catch up with him. We tried talking to some kids that he gave the ice cream to. They didn't know who he was.
Yeah, they had absolutely no idea. They were like, I mean, I think they were less than 10 years old. So Tom had retired by the time that these kids were born. But I was telling him, I was like, do you know who that is? No. I was like, that's a Chiefs legend. They're like, huh? I was like, he's in the Chiefs Ring of Honor. They're like, he was? Like, yeah, that's who gave you ice cream, kid. So cool to see Tom out here. Always a great guy. Very cool to talk to and good to see him out here. Also out here, there's some national media today. Kay Adams, very, very famous kind of podcaster up in Adams. And there's kind of a buzz out here today because people, you know, I mean, millions and millions of followers. People are very excited to see her.
She was here.
Yeah, and people were excited. So excited. Someone came up to the media tent. They were flashing like the cell phone where they're trying to get you to read a message. They thought Katie was Kay Adams, and they wanted her to sign a baseball. I know Kay Adams is kind of one of your idols. What'd you think of that?
It was kind of, she is the reason I wanted to become a sports reporter.
Yeah.
I saw her hosting Good Morning Football back in the day, and I thought she had the coolest job in the world, and I wanted to be like her. I'm a lot taller than her. I don't really see many similarities other than the fact that we have very dark hair. Flattering nonetheless, but that really, because the kid was kind of staring at me for about 10, and I'm like, what is this kid trying to say to me? And then he holds something up and I can't read, so I make Mark read it for me, and then I'm like, oh no, I'm not Kay Adams, but thank you.
I think she should have just signed the baseball, gone along with it. Next thing you know, the ball's on eBay. Yeah, it really would have. It really would have. It was cool to see, fun to see the national interest here in the Chiefs once again. I know NFL Network has been here, ESPN has been here. They all come right here to Missouri Western, St. Joseph, Missouri, right here in the heartland. All right, that's pretty much it from Chiefs camp today. It was the last of 3 practices before they moved the operation down to Kansas City for the rest of the year. So our time is really winding down up here in St. Joe. But not just football to talk about here today. We also have to talk about the Kansas City Royals today. They're taking on the Washington Nationals. The Royals 58-60. They just lost a series to the Minnesota Twins. The Royals, they were buyers at the deadline, really trying to make a push for the postseason. This weekend, taking on the Minnesota Twins, a team that sold a complete fire sale at the deadline. And then the Royals lose a series to that team. I know a lot of Royals fans really want to see this team make a push for the postseason. I hate to say this way, but it seems like the series loss, it might have been the season's not over, but it might have been the final nail in the coffin. Katie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, we said last week, the Royals need to start racking up series wins. They can get away with not sweeping all their opponents, but they have to get those series wins, and only getting one win out of 3 games is just not going to cut it when you're 5 games back at this point from a spot in the wild card, and then getting that final spot in the wild card, and then you got to play more baseball against better team than you. So it doesn't feel like it. I mean, they do have the benefit of right now they're back home. They had a really long road trip. Maybe that has something to do with it. But they're back home today to host the Nats. I was in the D.C. area when the Nats won the World Series in 2019. That franchise has tanked ever since then. I love Nats Park is beautiful. Went to a lot of baseball games there when I was in college. But if the Royals need to win a series, it's against the Nationals. Yeah. So this will be a big one, I think. Being back at the K, hopefully that kind of juices them up a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah. Royals fans, I just think there needs to be, and I think there has been obviously as the season has gone on, but there just needs to be an attitude adjustment about this team. I mean, going into the year, so many people really hoping they were going to build off the season that they had last year. And I think, early on we saw that the way that this team was struggling, and so many people just wanted to kind of say the bats are going to come alive, everything's going to turn around, and everything's going to be good. But here we are, August. 58-60, like we know who this team is, and obviously we want to see them and wish them the best of the way, but you never want to say never, but they're going to need to get really, really hot if they're going to make the postseason. But good news is they're going to take on maybe not the best teams going on the rest of the way, and a lot of games against the AL Central, so always rooting for the boys in blue. Hopefully they can figure that out and kind of make a push for the postseason. Looking a little bleak, though, right now. Anything else on the Royals?
No, kind of hit the nail on the head there.
All right, we got them covered. All right, boys, go get them tonight. We're always looking out for that. All right, college football. The AP poll came out today. The Kansas State Wildcats ranked number 17 in that poll. KU and Missouri not ranked. Katie, we talked about this maybe last week. I know that you've covered K-State very in-depth for the last 3, 4, whatever seasons. Avery Johnson entering his 3rd year. Obviously, everyone wants to know if he can kind of become a passing quarterback in addition to his incredible athletic ability. Do you think 3rd year I mean, he's played so much football. I feel like we're going to see a huge leap out of Avery. You've covered him very in-depth. Do you think we're going to see a big leap?
Yes, I 100% think so. And, I said this before last season began. All these people thought, Avery Johnson's starting full-time. He's one of our highest-rated recruits ever. We're going to win the Big 12 this year. And I'm like, he's still young. Yeah. But, he has a year of full-time starting under his belt now. He's developed chemistry with his tight ends, with his receivers. Jace Brown, that's going to be his guy in terms of the deep game. And more so than anything, I think Avery does best. I think he's a great passer. I know a lot of people don't give him that nod as a passing quarterback. I think he's a great passer when he's in an offense that is suited to his style. Last year, it felt like there were a lot of times where plays were just kind of being called for him that didn't totally make sense with the way that he plays football. Yeah. He was a 4-star recruit because he was really talented at running around in the RPO, and that's where he thrives. And he didn't get to do as much of that last year. But when we saw him getting to, be a little bit more mobile, kind of going around the field, making it work to his advantage, he played better. So I want to see Avery run more. I know there are a lot of offensive coordinators who will say we want to protect our quarterback, we don't want him to run. That's when he does his best football. So let him run, let him play free, because we saw in the glimpses where he did get to play like that, he played so much better, and K-State usually won those games. So I think this is Avery Johnson's year, and K-State's going to have a really high finish, if not win the Big 12.
I love how you said that, kind of about like how obviously he does like to run it. I think a lot of times when you do just tell quarterbacks, like, we want you to stay healthy, and not necessarily that they're putting him in a box and they don't want him to run, but it mentally kind of puts him in a box, because all of a sudden in the back of their head, oh, I got to stay healthy, I got to stay healthy, I got to stay healthy. And obviously you want them to stay healthy, but it will impact decision-making on the field. But in sports, they always say experience is everything in everything you do. Avery playing as much as he has in those first 2 years, now he's going to have this year and the next to kind of really showcase what that experience has done for him. Like, he's gone and played a night game at BYU. He's gone to all these other tough environments where he didn't succeed the way that he wanted to. Now he's going to have reps in those places against those teams that he'll be able to rely on. I really think we're going to see a leap out of him. Now, Kansas and Missouri, I'm not really sure if we're very shocked that neither of them were in the top. Missouri doesn't in the top 25. Missouri doesn't have a quarterback. KU has a ton of questions. Now, I know people are very excited to see how KU is going to feel this year, but I feel we need to talk about the new stadium. I mean, opening it up here in less than 2 weeks. What is it? 12 days away now, if I'm doing my math correctly?
Next Saturday.
Yeah, next Saturday. I know you went to a lot of games at the old booth. What do you think? Last year, obviously, they didn't play there. What do you think of the new booth?
I am hoping there's better cell service in there.
Yeah.
Because I have never had much luck sending out tweets in the old booth.
Yeah.
I will say I'm gonna give the Jayhawks like a pat on the back for every video and every picture that's being posted of the new booth. Let's keep in mind, it's not done yet. They're going to play this whole season, and then they're going to fix all the ugly bleachers on the right side. But they're really doing their best to only show the left and the center. So I got to say, good job, Jayhawks. You're really trying to keep that ugly
That's
side
excellent
out.
communications.
It's excellent communications. But a lot of people are catching on to that, so I think that's a little bit funny. But the stadium looks awesome. I love the wheat that's in the end zones. I love the blue in the bleachers and how you can kind of see words spelled out in there. I just think it looks pristine. I think it looks new and exciting, which is fitting for this football program, because it is a new and exciting football program. It's completely rebuilt from what it was from few years before I got here. When I got to Kansas, I was like, okay, KU good at basketball, bad at football. K-State good at football, and then I'm like, oh, KU can play football now. Okay. Yeah. So I've never known the Jayhawks when they couldn't win football games, or at least win 5. But sorry, that was a little bit
it's not mean if it's true. That's what happened. But hey, it's very exciting to see how the stadium has kind of developed. I know a lot of fans last year online of rival schools really kind of clowning the look. I know when I internally, like at the station we were talking about, I was kind of saying it looks like a bird cage with those things on top. But when some of the video that I've seen of the new stadium, just as you're saying, it's beginning to look like a legitimate, I guess, Power 4 now, Division I facility. Because like when you go to these other schools, other stadiums, like you look at what KU was playing at, like they had the track around the field, like it was just like this is that team's gonna beat Alabama, like that team's gonna beat Georgia. That it would never happen. Like it's just like, look at the facilities. But cool to see KU with that new not completed, but, you know, new-looking booth. And then the Missouri Tigers, obviously very anxious to see what happens there. Obviously, a quarterback battle. Picked to finish 11th in the SEC, not ranked here in the, or maybe 12th in the SEC, actually, in the preseason poll, but not ranked here in the top 25. Very excited to see what's going to happen there. It's been cool to see Missouri enter the SEC and have all that kind of stuff go on with the football coming into Columbia. But exciting college football. KU and K-State starting in less than 2 weeks. What, KU here at home, and then K-State out in Ireland. So we still haven't booked our tickets to Ireland. So great corporate, KCTV5, our bosses, if you're watching that, if we maybe get those tickets out to Ireland, we'd appreciate it. First class?
I'm just going to say, I'm about 60% Irish, so I could fit in, you know?
There you go. Luck of the Irish with Katie Maher.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that's pretty much all we have here on KC Sports Tonight from Chiefs training camp in St. Joe. Again today, the first of 3 final practices out here in St. Joe before the Chiefs move back down to Kansas City for the rest of the year. So for Katie Maher, I'm Mark Poulose. Have a good one, and stick with us on KCTV5.
Hi, guys.